mysteries, hidden history, and the unexplained. Join William Collinson and Lee Strydom on Strange and Mysterious World.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 10 of Strange Mysterious World. And by popular demand, we have David Verdesi back. A lot of you guys, subscribers, have asked if we could have him back. So yes, here he's going to be back with us, chatting about prayer. Well, power of prayer.
Yeah, power of prayer.
Yeah, awesome.
See how to do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us need that, eh?
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
I think so.
Yeah. Mm.
So you fasting today?
Yeah, man. Fasting.
Just for one day?
That to be for the next 30. So I've joined my friends and my friends at work. They all Ramadan starts today, in South Africa. So yeah.
Oh, but you're gonna do fasting like eating early in the morning before sunrise and then after
No,
sunset,
I don't
like
eat I don't eat in the morning. I just chow at night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're doing the whole Ramadan thing. Funny because
Yeah.
like my 10-day fast the other day where I didn't eat food at all for 10 days.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, yes, when Ramadan comes, I think I'm gonna try and do the whole Ramadan with not eating at all. Like I know you're supposed to eat before the sun comes up and when the sun goes, when the
Yeah,
sun
correct.
goes down. But
Yeah.
I thought like, no, I think I'll just try that for the whole 30. It's like 30 days, eh?
Yeah, kind of 29, 30 days, pending. But so
Yeah, on
yeah.
the moon or whatever. But it's funny because I thought, with fasting, because it's like in all of Orthodox traditions, fasting's a thing, fasting and prayer. So I want to ask David Verdesi as well, is that how come in the Bible and the Quran and the Torah, there's not mention of like meditating. It's just prayer and fasting. And
Well,
and
I don't know. In those days, did they know about meditation? Or
yeah, I mean, geez,
did they just call it prayer?
well, but I mean, like all of the the Vedas and all of the Eastern traditions, they've just as old as the Bible and all of that. I mean,
No, but what
um,
I'm saying is the guys in the Bible, did they know about meditation? Or did they just kind of put that on as
well, I think it just
prayer
got
equals
taken.
meditation, same thing?
Yeah, I suppose so. But also, I think it also took it out of the Bible, maybe because maybe they thought that you would.
Maybe.
Because I mean, Gnosticism was banned. It was heretic. Christian mysticism, or
Yeah.
the like what they would say that the true teachings of Christianity, the Gnosticism,
Mm.
it was banned by the church. It was heretical because they said you don't need a priest or a church or a bishop or a pope or whatever to get to God.
Mm.
You can sit anywhere and just talk to God or experience God just within yourself.
Yeah.
And that was the Gnosticism, and that was heretical because like
Yeah.
obviously it took away the whole power structure.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
that's
there was no intermediary. You could talk straight to the creator instead of having to now go through somebody to
yeah,
do
so
it.
that's why I think that if there was meditation or whatever in the beginning that it was taken all out because maybe it gave
Yeah.
you too much power. You realize yourself that you don't actually really need to go to church
Yeah.
or to speak to a priest or whatever to experience God because you can just do it in your living room by
Mm.
yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
So um but back to the fasting. Yeah, because then I thought, because all of these traditions like fasting, that was the way to purify your heart and your soul and to actually reach God was through prayer and fasting. So then when I did my 10-day fast, I was thinking, I'm going to do it in Ramadan. I'm going to go through I'm going to go for 30 days. It's got to be pretty dangerous. I mean, being a bit naive here, but so then I went and I read the Quran to see. I thought maybe Muhammad did say you just got to fast for 30 days. Like the food thing came later, like because the
Yeah.
people couldn't bake it. They were like no one could, like because obviously all religions they've changed to fit the times or whatever. They're like fuck this, let's just fucking eat when it's dark.
Yeah.
And then maybe Muhammad or God can't see us because the sun's not out. But I went and read the Quran and it said no, you have it, that's what Muhammad said. He said before
Yeah.
sunrise and the sunset, so it is actually there.
Yeah, before the
Yeah,
strip of light appears in the skyline.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
but good on you, man.
yeah, no, cool, man. And then yeah,
All
after we've
about.
chatted to David, we'll have a quick chat about my trip.
What? Oh, yes, your trip.
Yeah, we'll talk about the trip
Jeez.
later.
Yeah. Okay,
Let's
cool.
not say
We'll
anything now. We'll
speak it
chat
at the
about it
end.
later. Yeah, yeah. After the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
And this is not the ordinary trip where you pack a bag and a couple of sandwiches.
Well, you could be
Maybe you
packing
can pack some
bags. You
sandwiches.
could put, yeah, you could, yeah, well, you got to pack. We did pack some sandwiches. Well, actually, some fruit. But there's some baggage you could be taking with you.
And I also can't wait to hear how.
Yeah, she's.
Oh, we'll get into that later because you obviously had, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, here's
Oh, no.
David. Let's hear what it's got to say.
Hey, man,
Good, good.
looking fresh.
Yeah, it's a hot day in Bali, I can tell you that.
Oh, nice, man. I know exactly. Yeah. Great, man. And you got a new course coming up or event.
Yeah. This one it's organized by the American section by Lily Holden. Is the guy that put the documentary on Gaia. You know, he also appear in some part. You know, it's like he's the presenter. He's the blonde
Yes.
guy.
Yes, I
Yeah.
see him
So
quite
he's
a
gonna
lot.
bring a group he's gonna bring a group from the US. And I think we're waiting about maybe 20 people. It's gonna be a nice seminar, some interesting experiences, and the thematic will be power, understanding the complexity of the dynamic of powers, which is what most people are attracted toward to, although mistakenly. But it's extremely important to understand what is it, why we search it, what's under the umbrella of it, and so forth and so on, right? And you know, we're gonna teach some of these kind of internal power training exercises, and also gonna give people the chance to experience some of these, you know, magical things, like, you know, the people with the electric current, like John Chang and something like this, right? So it's I know they're gonna be happy.
Oh wow! So is that the electric current like of in the documentary series, the guy that could shock you, or you could touch him with only a leaf, because if you touched him with your finger,
exactly,
you would have a heart attack.
Yeah,
And that was
something
amazing to
like,
see, because like when you touched him with the leaf, the shot, like you could see the sparks coming off the leaf.
right, yeah.
And it was so funny because then you try to measure his voltage with that voltage pen, and it shocked
Yeah.
you. You even like jump
blew
back
it.
and
Yeah,
you were like, for fuck's sakes.
Wow.
Yeah, geez. Okay, well that's very interesting. I really want to join as well.
No, but is
You
that
should.
online though?
You
Is that
should.
online? David, is that online?
No. It's here in
Oh my
Bali.
gosh. Okay.
Yeah, 1
Wow.
week. So,
Damn,
and
man.
this thing, you know, they have to face to face. You know, you come here, you stay 1 week in beautiful Bali, and you have a great time and a great experience. You know,
Okay. Well, would you be
it's not that far from Australia. As long as it 5 hours flight, something like this, 6 maybe.
Yeah, from South Africa, it's about
far.
13 hours.
From where?
From South Africa, it's about 13 hours.
Gee, you in South Africa. I'm sorry, guys. I thought you were in Australia. I'm sorry.
Oh, we got
Pardon.
similar accents.
Yeah, we do.
But I think and you spent time in the Kruger Park as a game ranger. Remember you were telling us that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the Kruger, and then in Gita, and you know, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I
So, but will you have this similar program you're running now, like often? I mean, not often. Well, you'll repeat it because it's a bit.
This one,
yeah,
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's not gonna be the last one. I mean, definitely. I mean, it's nice because, you know, logically, these people with these special abilities, they are not that common. And let's say that I know a few of those in Indonesia, a few of those in China, and so it's like if you want to meet these people, it's a seminar that need to happen here, right? Because, you know, there is maybe a guy from China that I could invite to travel, but, you know, it's very expensive and it's a pain. You know, you need translation. You know, it is really,
Yes.
it just makes it really expensive. I brought him to the US, I brought him to Italy, I brought him to Russia, but it's really, it's too much, you know. So for people, you know, they end up paying, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, you know, just to have a 5-minute experience. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So that's why it's like you come here, you have a beautiful experience here, and then it's in the context, right?
Yes. Yeah. In our last interview with you on was season 3, episode 2, you mentioned you were doing like a Tumo practice. Well, it sounded like Tumo, but it was you would be drenched with freezing cold water, and then you would pray, and then you would be able to evaporate the water, and your body temperature would change to make you warm. And what sparked off my interest was prayer, and I just wanted to find out, you know, because I pray, you know, people, even when they are not religious and they're in trouble, they pray. But the thing is, I think maybe we don't actually know how to pray properly or effectively. And I wanted to find out from you, like, what is a prayer and how would you pray effectively?
That's a good question. That's the whole topic of a seminar. You'll have to organize a good group for this. It's seriously. I mean, it's a wonderful question, and it is one of my favorite things to teach. It's teaching people how to pray, because people have a very misguided understanding of what prayer is, which, you know, in its most simple semantic etymology from Latin and Italian, we still have it, pregare, prego. It fundamentally means to give thanks, okay, right? And so in its sort of basic etymological understanding, prayer is, well, it's gratitude, right? And so it's an exercise of giving thanks. So this one, again, if we just stay on the etymology of the word, you know, prayer. But within the spiritual tradition, the religious tradition, you know, I've identified some very precise stage and steps in the practice of prayer, which are common to all the Abrahamic religions. And so from the Torah of Judaism to, you know, Christianity in its very extended development. Christianity is not a monolithic thing. It is something that grew over the course of 1,000 years. So it's extremely diversified and different, right? And it just took the recent form fairly recently, right? And also, of course, then of Islam and the subcurrent of mystical Islam within, you know, Sufism. And so prayer has some sort of some algorithmic nature, which is common to all the Abrahamic religion, the stages of prayer, the steps of it, the elements of it. And then I also found that these elements are found also within the Asian tradition. Well, specifically, if we go into the what we call the Hindu tradition, which again is a fairly general denomination of a very large system of belief that, you know, developed in the continent of India over, you know, the course of the past 3,000-4,000 years. And so anything that goes from the Vedic, the Vedic, then the Puranical, the Brahmanical, the Upanishad part, all the way to the more modern sort of schools. And then, logically, I've analyzed and practiced and come across prayer as understood in the more animistic and let's call it shamanistic cultures around the world, from again, Africa to Central and South America, Southeast Asia, Siberia, and so forth and so on. And again, I have found this commonality, this underlying structure that exists in human prayer, which is very interesting, because it then leads to understanding that there is a common, although the language is extremely differentiated across cultural, ethnic groups and societies, right? But I believe that the psychological structures and the brain structures that give birth to language in its however many faceted forms are actually common. And so, not surprisingly, although we may call it in different ways, but the underlying structure of how it evolved, for example, the act of prayer and what prayer is, it is therefore universal, right? And so this has been, for sure, one of the really primary topic of my research, and unluckily, it never really made it into what is more publicly known about me, right? Everybody thinks that my life has been about superpowers, and I always say, I refute that as it's not correct, right? Actually, well, for example, the study and understanding of prayer has been definitely at the center of my research and inquiry for a great part of my journey, right, my research. So I am definitely very happy with this question. It's something that I love to teach and to speak about and help people understand. So, well, coming back now to the etymology of the word prayer, in English, finding his roots in sort of the Latin, pregare, which again means giving thanks. Without now going very deep, but I think that is something that has been made popular again, maybe whenever it was. Early 2000, these old things of the law of attraction and the gratitude exercises and so forth and so on. And which they probably were inspired by Thomas Merton, one of the modern Christian apologists. I think he was a monk, and he did some, I think, very good work at making relevant teaching of the church, which are otherwise for most of us, not relevant anymore, right? Even not real or anachronistic. So they work against the reality of time, and so I think that probably some of that one came out of it, but I may be wrong in respect of where the whole gratitude movement, really started from. But I think that it did a great service of bringing an awareness to people, to a core etymological meaning of the word prayer. Right? And so any exercise that is done, keeping in mind what to be grateful for, and really face life with that attitude, I think that is in itself already an act of prayer, and in that sense is religious. Well, say why? Well, because the word religion, again, it's a Latin word, religare, that means to bind together, right? And what it binds together? Well, it binds together, well, you with let's call it the will of God, for lack of a better word, and nature, maybe, possibly so, right? Or the natural unfolding of events. I mean, you know, however you want to phrase it, you want to sort of stay away from religious denominations. But the fact that there is something that is happening day to day, moment to moment, and that we call life. And life, it's characterized by one thing. It goes on. It doesn't matter what happened to you. Somebody dies, somebody suffers, somebody goes to war. Life goes on. So it's characterized by the very fact of going on. And so this going on, it's made of continuous changes. And so they say that there is nothing constant but change. Change is the only constant that we have, right? And so this going on, which is made of change, which is unstoppable, doesn't listen to anybody's opinion, right? You like it, you don't like it, it doesn't matter. It still goes on and it still changes. So you only have two options, right? Well, one is to resist it. And that leads to, on one side, the necessary shape of character, which is important. So an element of resistance is important because you are resisting something until you're properly understanding. And so the right of the element of free will to say, well, I don't agree, I will resist this disease, sickness, so I'm going to find a cure for it, right? Or I will resist the season, and I will find engineering and way to keep myself warm or cold, right? I will resist. And so that determined act of resistance that humanity has put up with the reality of life that goes on and changes, I think has a great value, because in that we come to determine our own identities, right? Cultural and personal and social and so forth and so on, right? And yet there must be a balancing force to this act of resistance, to this act of defiance, of you against all odds, which is sort of one of the great characteristics of hope, right? That doesn't matter what happened, I resist, even if I know I'm going to die, but I'm defiant of that itself to uphold my belief, right? And so this, I think, is a very important element, understanding that we need a certain degree of resistance because we build muscles, we build intelligence, we build solutions, okay? We build strength, we build identity, we build character. At the other end of the spectrum, it has to be tempered with the ability not to resist, but to be grateful. Coming back to the etymology of the word prayer, to be grateful for, right? Well, why is that? It's because it's a subtle line between having the necessary element of resistance in your life and standing up against odds and becoming arrogant and stubborn and blind to the reality of the fact that you are up against something much greater than you, of which you have no understanding at all, that you can't really predict. And that you are part of at the same time, and you are not apart from it. You can create fantasies that you are apart from it, but you are not. And so intelligent strategy at a certain point also say, well, I need to understand what's at stake, and at stake there is only one thing, the fact that it's certain that I will die. How do I make the little time that I have available not only meaningful, but also enjoyable? I mean, and so I want to try to logically avoid unnecessary suffering, because suffering will be there. but I try not to create extra unnecessary suffering on top of what is already dealt to me by life itself, right? And I'm gonna try to find moments of respite in this struggle of joy, of solace, of peace, of fulfillment, right? And so there must be a strategy here that looks at the bigger picture. And so the element of being grateful, and so pregare, giving thanks, which is again, it's sort of the etymology of the word of pregare is really to give thanks. Nowadays in Italian, right? When somebody you know, I don't know, somebody does something for you, something nice for you, right? You say grazie, that means grace. And the person that received the favor says, you know, prego, that is, I'm giving thanks. So it's quite actually a magnificent exchange of words when you really reflect. It's like anything that happens, you say, in English, it would be thank you, again, giving thanks, right? And the person that answers says, what would you say in English? Like, never mind, or my pleasure, or no problem, or whatever. Right, it's a pleasure, right? And in Italian, we have this grazie, that is, it is grace, and the person answering says, you know, I'm giving thanks for that grace. So there is linguistically, the act of prayer is the basic interaction, social, civil interaction between human beings is an act of prayer. Okay, is an act of giving and receiving grace and being grateful, being thankful for that received act of grace, which is an act of whatever is it, of kindness or of civil exchange. And so understanding that prayer, it is religious in the sense that it binds us to something that is larger than us, right? But it's also secular in the sense that it's not necessarily connected to a theistic belief system, okay? And understanding that etymologically, the meaning of the act of giving thanks has to be understood in the context of how we are part of a system that is life, that just goes on and on and on, and is made of constant and continuous change, to which you can put up some resistance. You should probably, in certain cases, put up some good resistance, but eventually, you know, you are faced with the fact that, well, if I put up too much resistance and I'm becoming proudful and stubborn, I just going to create for myself and for others unnecessary suffering, and I will not partake of whatever little or great joy and happiness and solace that I may find. And so what's the solution of that resistance? It's the other side. Again, is giving thanks. And so seeing the inherent perfection that is in whatever is as it is. Okay? And it's not an easy task, because it either requires a vision, a genius that sees that mathematical perfection of everything that is, that occur as perfect, that it is as it is, and it couldn't be any different, and so there is a sort of a genius into it, or an implicate order, we define it psychologically, or, you know, theologically they describe it as this famous, you know, divine will, divine plan, right? So however you want to define it, but the recognition of the fact that whatever happens is happening, and instead of resisting, you try to perceive the beauty of it. It's like a storm. It's terrifying, it's dangerous, and yet there is a terrifying beauty towards it. And so you are looking at it, and it's like, well, it's happening. you know, I can't avoid it. I can try to protect myself from it, but it's happening. And you try also to see the magnitude of that and how sometimes terrifyingly beautiful that is. It's like being in the ocean with, you know, there in South Africa, you have the big waves, right? And imagine being there with the ships and the boats when the big waves really hit. I mean, it's terrifying, and yet there is something magnificent about it, as is most of nature. You know, you think of a lion, I mean, it's magnifying, but being in front of it is terrifying. And so theologically, it is described that you should be in awe and at the same time in fear of God. Okay, you find this as a slogan of a lot of the Abrahamic religions, right? And it's like, well, how can you be in awe and in fear of God? And it's actually very simple to understand, just with the example of a mighty lion. But if you are in front of it, you know, you are afraid. Okay, and so there is a mighty beauty into its sheer power, and yet you are terrified because, well, you should be, because it could annihilate you in a snap of a finger. And so that giving thanks is understanding that you are not apart from life, but in life, made of life, within life, and that you are part of something that is so much greater than you, that has an implicate order, which is inherently beautiful, right? Inherently, well, perfect, we would say. And at the same time, it's ineluctable. So it will happen as it's meant to happen because of physical laws, because of chemical laws, because of other laws that we may not be aware of, right? But it's going to happen. And so I can put up a certain degree of resistance toward it. Yes, is okay. And at the same time, I need to temper that resistance with the ability to see the bigger picture and also to say, right, I'm grateful. No matter what it happens, you know, I'm giving thanks because, well, I've been given a chance of being alive now, of recognizing that implicit order, that implicit perfection that exists within the most terrible disease, famine, disaster, war, and genocide. And it's a very difficult thing to accept, right? But if you go back to biology and you understand that we have about 30, 40 trillion cells in our body, and in every single given moment within our body, there is an ongoing war, famine, genocide, and devastation. That is, cells are dying and phagocytating each other and whatever, being destroyed, and T cells are hunting other cells, and, you know, so forth and so on, right? And so the very fact that life exists and we exist is because there is this constant ongoing devastation and conflict between viruses and bacteria and the innate immune system and the responsive immune system and so forth and so on, right? Tissues that get digested, new cells that get created, and DNA transcripts that get transcripted wrong and then need to be apoptosis, they need to be, you know, destroyed, and so forth and so on. So it's terrifying when you look at it. And from the point of view of the cell that is being phagocytated and eaten by an army of white cells, well, that's like a war happening, and a poor victim of that war being killed, apparently unjustly, right? And in that injustice, you want a degree of resistance to it. You want to put up a good fight. But it must be tempered with not losing sight that there is something much greater. We are part of something much greater, of a much greater organism, of a much greater psyche, of a much greater mind, of a much greater, I don't know, design, if there is one, a blueprint, or call it the way that you want, right? that we can't fully comprehend and understand. And yet, we can confidently say that for billions and billions of years, this plan that conspires to create life, okay, works. And it conspires to create life and to sustain it in its own way that we don't comprehend, okay? And the proof is in our organism, made of trillions of cells coexisting and yet fighting and killing each other and then being reborn and being eliminated, and so on and so on. But it sustains life. And so, well, yes, I can resist. I should probably put up a good degree of resistance, but I need to be able to also give thanks, to be able to see that inherent perfection that exists within the war of the cells that are eating and destroying each other, and probably even in a cancer or a tumorous growth or anything that may happen to us, the most terrible thing that may happen to us. If we're able to balance the degree of necessary partisan resistance and giving thanks without losing sight of be able to give thanks. And so you are in awe and in terror. And in that you find your place in the order of things, which is fairly small, honestly speaking. And you never are forgetful of giving thanks. Well, that goes a long way. That goes a long way. Socially, psychologically, in your relationships, in relation to yourself. So, you know, in most spiritual tradition, in most religious cultures, in most shamanistic cultures, you know, the first thing you do when you open your eyes is give thanks. That you draw another breath, that you have another day to do good, to be good, to fight the good fight, to resist what you should resist, and to try, you know, to love more and better than you did yesterday. And then you apply that you try to apply that into the small things in your life where you are grateful for the food that you eat because there is food on the table. You are grateful that you have money today to buy the food and to buy clothes. And you're grateful that the person next to you is kind and didn't stab you. And you're grateful to your neighbor because they, you know, cohabit in this hive that we call sort of modern urban life. And, you know, and it goes a long way what to be grateful for, right? And so that is living life as a prayer, like you live life as a giving thanks, which doesn't mean that you are blind to the disastrous nature of life that is terrifying, right? And so this element of awe and terror, that is this apparently unreconcilable view of the divine, is actually become so much more clear if we learn to live in giving thanks for the things that happen. And so I spend time with some Christian saints, great, you know, hermits living up, you know, the mountains. And I remember something that changed the course of my life. You know, one of the things he told me is like, what God gives is grace. What God doesn't give is grace. And to be thankful for what God gives as grace, it's easy when we are given what we like, what we want, and what we think we deserve. It's of course much harder when we are given what we don't like and we don't think we deserve. And then it's even harder when we believe that we are not given. So what God doesn't give is also grace. And so to find the ability to see a glimpse of that larger complexity of which you are a small part of, but you are a part of it, you're not apart from it. And give thanks even if you don't really fully comprehend, but live in that state, that is living in prayer in its most simple etymological sense of the word. So, we're now not even going into the 7 stages of prayer or the 9 levels or the 13 parts. And, prayer is an incredibly rich and complex practice, which again, it's one of the most profound things that I believe every human being should learn. And when I say prayer, I don't speak of it necessarily in any theological sense. It really, but as a profound understanding of the underlying structure of the psyche. So I believe, first and foremost, is a psychological exercise. And then according to your own personal orientation, it might turn into also profound mystical, religious, even theological form that you can apply. I've been teaching this to Muslims, to Christians, to Hindus. So people that have a firm religious, theological belief. And how these people can be fairly, boxed, right? And I've been teaching them how to pray, the meaning of prayer, and then say, well, now use it reading the surahs of the Quran, or reading, the whatever you see, the Gayatris of the Vedas, or the Christian prayers of the Vespers, or whatever it is, right? And so once you understand that underlying structure, then even a religious person can use it to better and more in depth appreciate his own personal favorite, books or anything that they use as a reference. Right? And so, well, that's probably, a very simple general intro to the idea of prayer, just in the context of his etymological meaning, right? Of giving thanks.
Okay.
So let me ask, sorry, I will try
sorry.
to ask a quick question there. So in other words, people have to change the way that they think about how they pray. Because, when people pray, it's generally the same thing. They say, they, God, thank you. They spend maybe the first couple of minutes thanking God for something, and then they spend the next couple of minutes asking God for something. They say, all right, can you please make sure that this one's okay, or that this is okay, and then I'm doing this. So I think a lot of people misunderstand the actual thing of praying. So, and I think you're right. I think people just need to understand what the bigger picture is, because no one sees the bigger picture. Everybody just sees the small. It's about my little world and my little bubble.
Yeah, listen, it's so funny because, well, I will just use an example that it has some sort of political connotation, like it or not, but I think that it goes straight to the point. So, during any conflict, okay, you think of civil wars or just any conflict, of people within the same religious sort of belief. Okay, so they all read the same book and pray to the same God. But on the different side of the fence, one guy is asking the same guy, because they all pray to the same guy, make me win, I'm good, he's bad. And the other guy praying, reading the same book, the same prayer, praying to the same guy, says, make me win, make him lose, I'm good, he's wrong. And so be with me, God is with me. And the other say, God is with me. And so, well, you can see here the logical fallacy of the very premise of it. Okay. And so definitely, the whole idea of the premise of the fact that a supernatural entity may grant you favor like a genie, and so he's like your servant on call, I think it's so wrong and so childish and so flawed, and so I don't have an expletive for it, but it's like, it's so easily proven not just not existing, right? It's just is wrong as a concept at the start. The whole premise of it is a fallacy, is a psychological and logical fallacy. So yes, of course, prayer is not about asking favor from God. That's not prayer. And again, it makes no sense if you just analyze how ridiculous it is, right? And because it goes into magical thinking, which, you know, we are prone to as a race. I mean, humanity, we are prone to magical thinking. I don't know animals, right? I don't pretend to read animals' mind, but I can definitely see from experience that as a race, we do have a tendency to magical thinking. That is, the magical thinking is, well, you know, I am special, because underlying the magical thinking is I am special, and so God will grant me something unique that he didn't give to others. And I've been particularly good, and now I will sacrifice 3 goats and 2 cows and whatever is it. And because my sacrifice is better than yours, and I'm a better person, I don't know whatever is it, God is going to grant me his favor, and vice versa. You know, I'm not a good person, and God is punishing me with a disease. I mean, and listen, before the germ theory, which is 300 years ago, right? I mean, you'd be laughing, but people, that is, everyone, thought that if you were getting sick, is because you were punished for some sin, right? And so it was so tragic and yet so hilarious, thinking that until not a very long time ago, this one was the commonly held belief of humanity at large, right? And so I am special in one way, and so I deserve, or I believe that I deserve, some special treatment of favor, when the other guy on the other side of the fence is thinking exactly the same, right? And so then you know, God give you a favor with one end and the other guy favor with another end. It's like, you know, how does it really work? Is he listening to both, or is he listening only to me? You know, it's like this whole thing is so childish, and vice versa. Then accuse again God for something wrong in my life is again thinking that, oh, I have sinned, and so that's why I'm getting punished, and so on and so on, is as nonsensical as, but is psychologically very powerful and very innately rooted in our core system of magical thinking, right? Of attributing sort of power and agency to forces outside of us for things that we don't understand or that we don't want to take responsibility for, right? And so absolutely, I mean, I agree with you that the whole idea of how people pray in the very primitive way of, oh, I did my offering, now God, grant me what I want. I want a good job, the Mercedes, a good wife, I don't want problem, I don't want to get sick, and so on and so forth. And placebo, you know, placebo has a very high efficacy rate, I think 30-something% between, I don't remember now, 27 and 30 plus, right? And so it's a lot. And so, you know, well, if you believe it, probably you will find some confirmation bias that is actually happening in your life. Now, is it coincidence? Is it really, did you really cause it? Are you the causing agent of it? I don't know, to tell you the truth, right? Possibly, again, through the power of placebo, you may be, but I don't know. But that's beside the point. if we are asking about prayer, I think that that's beside the point. The point here is that in a proper understanding of prayer, this childish, primitive perspective of asking the genie to grant you special favors is childish, is flawed both logically, psychologically, spiritually, on so many levels. And I don't think that it leads anywhere good. Even if I know that it's been weaponized, and I use this word on purpose, has been weaponized and monetized by, for me, charlatans that are trying to sell it and sell it to people as the new wave of spirituality, as the law of attraction, believe and be grateful, and the universe will give you what you want. So you have your own genie on command. I'm gonna find lost objects on the beach and attract only good things to myself, and have this fantastic Instagram splendid life, and I will never get sick. And listen, I happen to know a number of these gurus and followers of these gurus behind the scenes, right? And I'm not making names, but I think it's unnecessary here. And it's the Wizard of Oz. Okay, it's great for the show, and at the level of mass psychosis or Gestalt, mass consciousness, or placebo, I don't deny that it does work in some cases, which is a fairly good percentage anyway. So it's I'm not denying it. I'm just thinking that there is something there.
Something more.
Not transparent. Okay, yeah, maybe okay. Not transparent or not fully ethical. And a lot of these gurus, that are promoting these, they themselves, in secret, it happened recently, called me, for example, and to find out good clinics and doctors to do therapies because they have problems, right? But they can't, because in front of their audience, logically, how can the person that promotes the power of intent, of belief that you can attract and manifest everything that you want, and you can change and reprogram your genetics and blah, 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 be forever healthy and whatever is it, right? Then be sick. And yet that's what happened, right? I mean, a lot of them, they go for nice hair transplants because they can't make their hairs regrow, right, with the power of belief and asking God, why God doesn't regrow my hair? I mean, but they don't regrow, so they have to go to a doctor, which act in God's behalf, of course, right? It's the answer to their prayer is that they find the right doctor. Of course, yes. I mean, you can spin it in many ways, right? And probably the answer to that prayer was that they found me and they found, a contact to some doctor that could help with their problems, right? And so, of course, you can spin it in many ways, but I think that you understand, what I'm trying to say here, that you have to be very careful in the exercise of wishful thinking, of which we as humans are capable of, and I believe that there is power into it. Again, placebo is a real power because, 20, 30% or whatever, right? And I might now be wrong in the exact numbers, but the point is that is a considerable number. So placebo is not a deniable reality. And so we as humans are capable of wishful thinking, and that wishful thinking, if we really, really believe it, not just, here, but somehow we manage to create that subconscious structure of belief, it does have an impact. So I'm not denying that. But we have to be very careful not to mix the idea of wishful thinking with the idea and understanding of actually prayer, which then, in a theological perspective, it's the question of, well, what is our understanding of God? Again, is he equated to just a genie that you rub the lamp you make him an offering, you make him happy, and then he's going to fulfill your wishes. Well, that's the primitive belief. And you know, here in Bali, I mean, they do offerings of cats, pigs, dogs. I mean, in Africa, the same. In many countries, the same. I mean, in the early Israeli tradition, I mean, in the Torah, I mean, the sacrifices to Yahweh is written in the Torah. I mean, the Hebrew Bible, that Yahweh enjoys sacrifices and the smoke of goats when you cook them, right, or whatever it is. So in India, I mean, they still kill, in Nepal, I mean, they kill thousands and thousands of goats. In Islam, they slit goat's throats. So this whole idea that you can appease a god, and as a genie, you giving something is going to give you something back else, something that you covet, that you want, unique, and it's going to give it to you and not to someone else. It's part of the primitive, wish-fulfilling, magical thinking of the human race. And we have that. We are capable of that. And I believe that there is a certain power in this wish-fulfilling element, in this power of belief. I don't deny that. But I also definitely trace a line between that and understanding a deeper, more proper understanding of the meaning of God, the role of prayer. On the more proper psychological dimension of it.
So, David, yeah, it's funny you brought up that story of like, you know, they're in a war and there's two people praying, but they're praying to the same God, and who's gonna win? Because I was at a rugby match, this last big rugby match we had, and I'm sitting with my Christian friend. I mean, she's very, very Christian, and she was sitting there like praying, like that we would win. She's sitting there praying, praying. I'm watching her, and I said to her, well, what if the other side wins? Because there's a whole bunch of people obviously praying for the other side there, and we praying for this side. But so now, what if they win? Did they pray harder? And then she sat there
Right,
and she
exactly.
sat there and she was
they beat themselves more, you know, and so
yeah. So because I was like, we praying to the same God. So like, obviously, if that team wins, did they pray harder or what? How does it work? And she sat there and she kind of like was like, and she looked at me. She said, "Yeah, good point." And then I thought, like, well, you know, there are these like studies that if one person prays for a sick person that's sick, it can have like a certain like effect. And you, as you mentioned, the placebo thing, then the person probably believes they're getting better, and we believe that they're going to get better. But then also there's some studies that they took a person that didn't know they were getting prayed for, or I can't remember the whole study. I have to look it up. And then so they didn't know that they were being prayed for. Only one person prayed for them, and then there was a person that was also sick, and then like 1,000 persons prayed for them. They also didn't know, and that person had a certain percentage of it sounds like a bit of a flawed thing, because I mean, obviously the two people, if they didn't have the same disease, but anyway, what I'm trying to get to is that they have had studies where there's a lot of people praying for a certain thing, there is a better chance or a better outcome. And I wanted to know if there is some kind of like force behind that manipulates it. If it's a power of intention. I know there's this whole power of attention of 1,000 people, like 1% of the population get together and they put their intention in something. It has an outcome through some kind of like divine, like will or whatever, or is it just a placebo effect? I mean, what I mean, like, is if you're affecting something that someone doesn't even know and it does get affected somehow, is there something to that?
well, once again, I don't think that this has nothing to do with prayer or what prayer is about. Prayer is a psychological exercise to relieve the psyche of its existential dilemmas and to help point the psyche, so the persona, the individual, in the right direction. And that right direction is love, first of all. And it is a direction that helps you to navigate the anxieties of life. And it gives faith, not because necessarily in a theological sense of the word, but it gives faith as understanding that you are moving toward a a concrete vision that you have established for yourself. And so helping you to navigate where there are obstacles and help you to have a better understanding or picture of reality, and therefore help you to move toward your objective better. So I'm more, let's say, in this sense, I equate more prayer with meditation. Again, prayer, if we speak etymologically as giving thanks, and meditation as the etymology of the word meditation, again from Latin and Greek, mediaistemi, mediostare, which is you place in the center of your cognitive attention something. And so in this sense, prayer as meditation, that is, you place at the center of your cognitive ability this attitude of giving thanks. So that is of seeing, and here I mean giving thanks understood as seeing that there is an implicit order and meaning to things, the way that they happen, even if you don't like them or you don't understand them. And so rather than resisting and fighting, giving thanks is say, okay, well, that's the situation that I have. What do I do with this? And understanding that situation and you yourself in that situation, there is, once again, a logic, to use a term from psychology, like so there is an implicit order in chaos. So whatever element in your life appear chaotic, the idea of prayer as a meditation is that you place at the center of your will not to be swayed in anxiety or panic, but holding to that center, that meditation, that staying in the center, your ability to see and therefore to give thanks for the fact that however unseemly seems the situation, there is an implicate order. Within this chaos, there is a seed of order and structure, which I may not see. But if I stop resisting it, I actually may finally start to see the big picture, the solution, the way out, right? And so, again, my understanding of prayer is definitely more psychological in this sense, not woo-woo magical powers or mysterious forces. Not because it's possibly not true, it's just because it's not interesting to me. Yes, I mean, there is so many experiments. You sing good songs to your plants or to water, and then you freeze it, and the water structure is difficult, it's better, or the plants grow more healthy and faster. I mean, you can't deny this empirical observation, right? For sure. But then systemically, do they change anything? No, they don't. Because then monks that sings hours and hours or meditate on peace and love and kindness should live forever and be forever healthy. And clearly they are not, right? And there are, well, we are about 9 billion people. Let's say that 2/3 of the population is religious in a way or another. Out of this 2/3 of the population, let's say that 1/3 actually pray. So you have easily 2 billion people praying, right? And, well, it's definitely not solving anyone's problem, okay? And so the fact that you can observe some empirical phenomena taking place at the micro scale, it doesn't mean that the very same thing applies systemically. It's a very interesting observation. It might have probably, it's really, really interesting for sure. But we clearly we have a gap to transform and convert that little localized empirical observation into systemic application. And one day we may figure it out. At the moment, I believe, again, it's paying attention to something that doesn't really give you solutions. It just keeps you stuck into wishful thinking. Right? So that's a bit, my point here. And then, I mean, my grandmother passed away at 103, 4, however old she was, right? And I have another friend here whose grandmother is 105 and still alive. And atheist, both of them. And my grandmother was a very, very angry person, very negative, pessimistic, right? And then you have all these, kind and loving hippies or whatever, pseudo monks of this and that sort. I love everyone. And, and they die like flies at 50s, 60s, or 70s, with it's like, it's so easy.
It's really all the
It is
dope they're
so
smoking.
easy it is so easy to disprove the comfortable belief, simplistic, primitive belief that it would be so easy and solve life problem just because you are a good person and you think good thoughts and you have good intention and project good intention and prayer. If that would be so simple, trust me, we would already have the solution, because there is billions of people in one way or another praying and projecting this good intention out, and it doesn't work. And so, and even if it does, it's hiding something way more complex and complicated. And so prayer definitely should not be an escape route. That's not really what it's meant to do or what it is. It's an incredible tool, if properly understood, very powerful to channel the incredible power of your mind, of your thoughts, of your words, to create order within chaos, to give you vision, to show a way forward, to let you perceive a way out or a way in, or simply to let you understand the grand picture where you are, to let you take action in the direction where you should take action, that you are not taking action on, right? And to reflect upon the stupid things that you are doing that you should not do, right? And then take action on that. And so prayer is a profound tool that is so much greater than just the magical wishful thinking. So that's really, my point here. All right.
David, sorry, can you just tilt the camera down a little bit and just wipe it? It's flaring a little bit, the actual lens. I don't know if you could.
Sorry.
Or if you, there. If you just sit in front of that, it's just the lens is a bit dirty, so it's flaring quite a bit.
Sorry.
So David, I remember when I took one of your classes, there was one of your breathing exercises. You said that you would pray, and when you were doing a lot of prayer, that you lost your libido, and
Yeah.
so I just wanted to find out what were you praying for, and like how did that affect you like that? I mean, if you can share that, I don't know. I mean, we don't have to share it if you don't want to.
Well, probably is a very long conversation. I promised my wife I'll take her to see sunset, but it's already 5 o'clock. Just don't be bothered with these things. It's like if you listen what I said, I think you have what's a basic understanding for what it can be described sort of in a podcast of a general understanding, or reorienting the understanding of the meaning of prayer as giving thanks. It's an instrument, one of the tools that we use to help to put order in your mind, and in that way to put order or to see order in reality. Because when the mind is not in order, is not aligned, because it's resistant, it doesn't see order, it sees chaos around, and it sees conflict, right? And so prayer, if properly understood, help to heal that neurosis, that separation, and therefore it makes you more present and to participate in reality rather than, you know, neurotically trying to deny it or escape from it or wish it to be different than it is. So let's just leave it at that for now.
Okay. And then just sorry,
And
Dave, just before you
in
go,
doing
yeah.
that, so that it doesn't seem that I'm avoiding your question. In doing that, when you do it intensely, it reorients the psychic forces of your mind where they need to be. And so if you are, as many men are, overly centered, let's say, on your sexual drive, because it's simple. First of all, because you're a man, and so it's probably the way that you are designed and meant to be, and God's grace is perfect and beautiful, right? But it might also be because you didn't have enough of it at the right age, and so you're trying to make it up, or you come out with some sexual frustration or repression. God knows, like, the list can be very long. But let's say that your identity may be overly centered, okay, in the need of a confirmation of your identity through sexual gratification or through the gratification that you receive by the sexual attention that you get. Okay, let's say it. So it could go in a few ways. And so prayer, when done intensely, help you to reorient, you know, the compass of your psychic energies and redistribute it more organically, so there is not overly stuck or overly obsessed or concentrated there. And so it's redistributed organically in the whole sphere of your being. And then, you know, suddenly you realize that all the libido that you thought you have was actually because of a tension, and that was sort of was sort of becoming obsessively centered there, because you couldn't perceive or think of anything else for you to get recognition, to fill up the love that you don't have, that sense of connection. And so prayer can reorient that, and not just for sexuality, but it can be for addictions of different sorts, drugs, alcohols, or you know, internal rage and burst of anger or violence or many things. So again, if properly understood, is an incredible tool. But again, it doesn't work the way that it works because of magical thinking, because of, you know, some mysterious something. It's a perfectly logical tool that doesn't require, for it to function, belief in some supernatural something. That's the core point. Okay.
Thank you, Dave. And then just sorry, just before you go, is there any like basic practice you can say to say like what, like 10 minutes a day, like just sit there and, I mean, how would you give it like a basic prayer, like guidance, you know, if somebody wanted to start practicing this every day?
Well, you know, I think that listening to this podcast from the beginning to the end and taking notes of what I said is the best way, because, you know, I don't believe in bullet points, you know, 1, 2, 3. I know it's simple. People don't like to think. Okay, and so you become more and more stupid. Okay, but you need to think. And so listen, take notes about what I say. Some things probably with, okay, this one makes sense. And if you have listened to what I said already there is a structure that you can apply and you create your own, rather than taking it from a book, a pre-digested, pre-made formula made by someone else, right? You have to create your own words, adjusted to your own life, to your own situations, right? And sit and think every day. You know, what is it that I am doing that I should not be doing?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
prayer. And your conscience. Your conscience. There is a deep part integrated between conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. Will answer you. And you don't need to postulate the existence of a God. You will answer yourself. Because your conscience knows what is it that I am doing that I should not be doing. Right? And, oh, God, the list is long for every person. And then take action. Well, out of these 100 things, let's start with one thing and take action now. That's prayer. And then you ask yourself, well, what is it that I am not doing, that I know that I should be doing? And the list is also long. But that's prayer, and you can do it every day, right? And then you take action, right? And you know, that's an exercise of prayer. That's going to help you to find the meaning of life. That's spiritual practice, real spiritual practice that lead to real change and transformation. Yeah, not solipsistic visualization of great things and feeling love for everyone. That's not spiritual practice. That's self-aggrandizement, narcissistic complacency. And then, well, prayer, as I explained, the Latin meaning of prayer, pregare, it's giving thanks. And so understand how giving thanks for things that we understand, giving thanks for things that we don't understand, so we may align our resistance with what is. And so by resisting less, we may actually come to see and understand what we don't understand and what we don't see, right? And then once we understand it, we can reorient ourselves toward the truth, toward reality, rather than away from it. Okay, and instead of fighting, okay, we learn to see the order, see the perfection, right? See that implicate divine will or planning to things, and realize that we are part of it and not separate from it, and you find your place, your order, your direction into it. So those are a few simple things that I described, you know. But then you have to make it your own. It's your own life. It's your own unique case, with your own words, with your own examples. Don't be lazy. Think, take notes, analyze. Okay?
Oh, lovely. Thank you, David. I've
Yeah,
noticed
awesome.
that because there's some meditations I do, and then I do it by the book, by whatever they said, and it's not working, and then I start thinking, and I realize that maybe try this or do this because, you know, from all this like research and stuff, talking to people like you, and then I just it becomes something completely different because I'm making it my own, and then it works.
Good.
So thank you, David, for your time.
Very, very welcome. Yeah, and it's no easy things, you know. To live a life of prayer means to live a life in giving thanks. That is, it's to see that there is this perfection into everything, even into the things that seem terrible. And it's not an easy task, because it requires a vision, a grand vision that transcends your limited understanding of what you think is true, what you think is right, what you think you want, into something much larger. So it's a path of transformation to live in prayer, this in giving thanks, constantly being in awe, say, oh my God. And so everything that you live, it appears differently. It's not easy. It's extremely difficult because, as I explained in the beginning, our mind is resistant to change, is resistant to say, well, I'm giving thanks. Our mind resists and say, no, I'll fight because I don't like this. I don't agree. I want to change it. And so it's an invitation to balance forces within our psyche, which require a lot of work. But it's definitely an incredible instrument. All right?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What a lovely summary you've given there. Thank you, David.
Yeah, much appreciated for your
welcome.
time. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you so
No
much,
problem,
David.
guys.
And good luck with
Take
your
care.
event. We'll put the link in the show notes for people that want
Sure.
to go to your event. And
Sure.
It's a bit short notice. I wish I had the money. I would definitely jump on a plane and go there, but I'll have to wait for the next one.
No
And
problem. We will have next ones. No worries, guys. Anytime.
all right.
Okay, it's a pleasure always to see you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
David. Have a
David.
good one. Cheers, David.
Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cool. Right, guys, guys and girls, yeah, thanks for listening. We went a little bit long today, so we'll discuss the trip on another day. Perhaps the next podcast we'll discuss that. And yeah, thank you guys and girls for listening. Please subscribe, like our channel, and we'll spot you next week. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Will.
Awesome. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks,
Cheers,
man.
guys.